Marry her? Damon Sinclair's shocked voice broke the thick silence inside his late father's old, musty law office. You're telling me the woman I just saw sleeping under the Wabash Avenue Bridge, you want me to marry her? Arthur, is this some kind of sick joke, or has my father's madness finally reached out from the grave? Arthur Davies, the tired old lawyer whose sad eyes had seen too much, didn't say a word. He just shook his head slowly. The wrinkled paper copy of Alistair Sinclair's will still lay untouched on the worn oak table between them. Outside, the wailing of sirens echoed off the cold Chicago streets, a warning of how close Sinclair Media Group was to completely falling apart. And now, Damon, the sharp 40-year-old CEO in a spotless Armani suit known for having a heart colder than Lake Michigan's winter wind, was faced with a demand more ridiculous than any nightmare he'd ever had. The air in the office was heavy, full of old paper, heavy silence, and tension. Damon sat still in a cracked leather chair. His suit looked expensive, clean, and completely out of place in that outdated room, just like the ridiculous terms in the will. His strong, chiseled face looked worn out. The blue-gray eyes that once cut through boardrooms like knives were now sunken and dull. Arthur Davies cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Slowly, he read out the final line from Alistair Sinclair's will, the last surprise from a man known for controlling everything, even from beyond the grave. And finally, Arthur said, voice flat and quiet, your full inheritance, including all assets, your father's controlling shares in Sinclair Media Group, and a trust worth $500 million will only be granted if you, Damien Alistair Sinclair, are legally married within 30 days from the reading of this will. Damon didn't react. His father had done worse during his lifetime. This felt like just one last cruel laugh from beyond the grave. Arthur continued, his tone more serious now. If you failed to meet the marriage condition in 30 days, everything will be donated to the National Long-Haired Persian Cat Conservation and Development Association. This time, Damon couldn't hold back. He laughed, but it was cold, bitter, almost painful. Persian cats, really? He scoffed. His father, the man who built an empire out of pure strategy and manipulation, now wanted to give everything away to cats just because his son wouldn't marry? Sinclair Media Group was already falling apart. His father had made mistake after mistake in his final years, and now creditors were knocking at the doors. Competitors were circling like vultures. This ridiculous marriage clause, it was the only lifeline left, and even that felt like a trap. Arthur looked at Damon with sympathy. Today is day 1. You have 29 days left to find a bride, or maybe get used to loving cats. Damon's face tightened. His chest burned with anger and humiliation. His father's final joke wasn't funny. It was a prison, a noose. But Damon had made a promise long ago to his late mother, a sweet, strong woman who worked hard and believed in the company. He'd promised her he wouldn't let everything she helped build go to waste. He had to find a wife now, not for love, not for a family, but to keep Sinclair Media alive.
The next few days felt like a bad dream that wouldn't end. Damon didn't have the time or the mental energy to go chasing after rich heiresses or arrange some fancy, respectable marriage. Every second felt like sand slipping through his fingers. He needed a fast fix, something simple, something that wouldn't turn into a legal mess or emotional disaster. For one wild moment, he even thought about hiring a fake wife, someone to play the part just long enough to fool the board. But no, the risks were too high. What if she blackmailed him? What if the media found out? With the company already in trouble, one bad headline could destroy everything. So he buried himself in work instead, chasing any financial solution that might save Sinclair Media Group. But it was like running into locked doors. Every deal fell through. Every investor backed off. It was as if the whole world had turned its back on him. That stupid clause in the will. It was like a time bomb ticking in his head. At night, Damon would drive aimlessly through Chicago, unable to sleep. The streets became his thinking ground. His Bentley cruised down the wide boulevards he knew so well, but soon drifted into neighborhoods he'd never bothered to visit before. Areas where the buildings were old and tired, where life looked heavier, where the real struggles lived. One late October night, cold rain fell in a slow drizzle. The wind sliced through his coat like blades. As he drove near the river, past broken fences and crumbling sidewalks, something made him stop. Under a cracked concrete bridge, in the yellow glow of a flickering streetlight, he saw a small figure huddled against a pillar. Someone was sitting there, not lying down, not passed out, sitting, awake, wrapped in a torn plastic sheet, trying to shield herself from the wind and wet, and reading. A paperback book, the pages bent and soggy. Every few minutes, she'd lift a corner of the plastic to protect the book from the drizzle, then go back to reading by the dim streetlight. Damon just stared. He couldn't explain why. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the pressure eating him alive. Maybe he just needed a distraction. Whatever it was, it made him park the car and step into the rain. His footsteps echoed on the wet concrete. The woman jerked her head up in alarm. Her tangled hair fell over her face, but Damon could see her now. She was young, probably in her 30s. Her cheeks were thin, her clothes worn and stained, but there was something about her. Her eyes. Huge, deep blue eyes that looked like they held the whole winter sky. They weren't dull or broken like he expected. They were alive. Sad, yes, but strong, watchful. "Who are you?" Damon asked, his voice dry and low. The woman clutched her book close and narrowed her eyes. "What do you want?" "I have a proposition," Damon cut through the small talk. He was done wasting time. "Do you want to make a lot of money? Have a roof over your head for a while?" She didn't move, just watched him closely. "Who are you? What are you playing at?" she asked. "I'm Damon Sinclair, and I need a wife, right now." He met her gaze head on. "I'll give you $100,000 if you marry me. 1 year. After that, we divorce, you walk away with the money, and a fresh start. I get what I need." He didn't bother explaining the will, not yet. It was too weird, too personal. She didn't answer right away. She was thinking, and I could see it on her face. Confusion, suspicion, hope. "Why me?" she finally asked. Her voice cracked a little. "Why would you want to marry someone like me? I'm homeless." Damon shrugged, trying to seem casual, but something inside him stirred. "You're the first person I ran into, and you don't look like trouble. I don't have time to be picky." The woman was silent, thinking. Her eyes darted to the sky, then to the street, then back to him. And then slowly, she nodded. "My name is Serafina Moon. People call me Sarah. I'll do it, but I have 2 conditions." Damon tilted his head. "Go on." "First," she clutched her book tighter, "I want to keep this book and the few things I own. Second," she hesitated, "there's a friend of mine in the shelter nearby, Grace. She's very sick. She needs medicine. You help her too." Damon nodded without thinking. "Done. Consider it part of the deal." He didn't expect this. A woman with nothing, sleeping under a bridge, and her first thought was someone else. Something about that moved him in a way he didn't want to admit. And just like that, under that cold Chicago bridge, a strange deal was made. A deal between a desperate CEO and a mysterious homeless woman. The next morning, they were married at City Hall, quietly, quickly. No one knew. Only Damon, Serafina, wearing the cleanest outfit Damon had picked out for her, and Arthur Davies, the ever-loyal lawyer. No guests, no cake, no celebration. Just two awkward signatures and a strange sense of disbelief. Arthur handed them two plain gold rings. Nothing fancy, just enough to seal the paperwork. Serafina Moon, a woman who had nothing, was now legally Mrs. Sinclair.
Soon after the quiet City Hall wedding, Sarah followed Damon to his penthouse, a place that looked more like a five-star hotel than a home. It was high above the city, with glass windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a stunning view of Lake Michigan and the shining towers of Chicago's skyline. Everything inside was modern, cold, and insanely expensive. Silver and gray furniture, shiny marble floors, spotless white counters. It all felt clean, but not warm, not lived in, not like home, just beautiful and empty. Sarah stepped in slowly, her eyes wide. She had just come from sleeping under bridges and spending nights in cold shelters. Now she stood in a place that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She felt completely out of place. Damon showed her to the guest room, a big space with a soft bed, large windows, and a fancy bathroom. But like the rest of the apartment, it felt cold and distant. There were no personal touches, no warmth, just space. He spoke to her politely, but with the same coldness as if she were a stranger hired to clean, not someone he'd just married. He gave her new clothes, basic toiletries, and a small weekly allowance. Then came the rules. I expect you to stay in this room most of the time. Please avoid moving around the apartment without telling me. And definitely don't speak to anyone outside without my permission. His voice was clipped and professional. This is a business deal, Miss Moon. Don't forget your role. Sarah nodded, saying nothing, but something in her chest ached. Still, she understood. This wasn't love. It wasn't even kindness. It was survival, for both of them. But Damon couldn't stop watching her. Something about her bothered him, and not in a bad way. He was just surprised, curious. Every time he glanced her way, he noticed something new. After she'd showered and changed, the woman who walked out of that guest room looked completely different. Her skin was no longer pale and dirty. It had a soft pink glow now. Her tangled dark hair had been washed and brushed out into thick, shiny waves. And those eyes, those unforgettable ocean-deep blue eyes, they looked sharper, brighter. He had expected her to act lost, confused, maybe even lazy. But she didn't. She didn't complain. She didn't demand anything. She spent most of her time in her room reading the same old book she brought from under the bridge. Sometimes, Damon would catch her reading from the shelves in his private library, scanning through thick novels or old newspapers with focus in her eyes. And she wasn't just reading. She understood it all. She wasn't simple, that was clear. There was something more behind her silence, something sharp, curious, intelligent. Now and then, when they had to talk, usually about some event she had to attend as Mrs. Sinclair, Sarah would open up a little, just enough to give him a peek behind the wall she'd built. She told him she once studied journalism, graduated with honors from a top university on the East Coast. She used to work for a respected investigative paper. She had a real future ahead of her. But then, something happened. She didn't say what, only that she was betrayed, deeply. It cost her everything. Her job, her home, her trust. She lost it all. Damon didn't push her for more details. Honestly, he didn't want to get involved. She was here for a job, that was it. He told himself over and over. But the truth was, he was intrigued.
At first, Damon didn't plan to let Sarah be seen, but a few weeks in, he had no choice. Board members were asking questions, shareholders were whispering. so he had to bring her along to a couple of social events, fancy dinners, charity balls, corporate galas, all the fake, polished nonsense he normally handled alone. Sarah looked nervous at first. The glittering dresses, crystal chandeliers, and rooms full of sharp smiles made her uncomfortable. She clutched her small handbag tightly, unsure of where to stand or what to say. But Damon gave her simple instructions. Smile, be polite, don't say too much. What he didn't expect was for her to shine. Sarah didn't try to impress anyone. She didn't put on airs. Instead, she watched, listened, waited. And when she did speak, it was quiet but powerful. She made a few smart comments about art, about politics, even about business, sharp observations that made heads turn. People started leaning in to hear more. Her intelligence slipped through, calm and effortless. Damon was stunned. She wasn't trying to fit in. She didn't have to. Her calm presence and quiet strength spoke for her. And that's when Victor Sterling noticed her. Victor Sterling was Damon's biggest rival, a sharp, elegant man in his 50s with a silver tongue and a dangerous gleam in his eyes. He was also on the board of Sinclair Media Group, and he didn't like surprises. He watched Sarah closely, narrowing his eyes as he studied this mysterious new Mrs. Sinclair. He didn't believe the marriage for a second. Something about it felt off. Behind the scenes, he started digging, hired investigators, called in favors. He wanted to know everything about Serafina Moon. Meanwhile, Sinclair Media Group had a bigger problem brewing. One of its biggest newspapers, the Chicago Chronicle, was in serious trouble. A top politician was suing them for publishing articles that claimed he was corrupt. The lawsuit wasn't just about money, though it asked for tens of millions in damages. It threatened to shut the paper down completely. The company's reputation was already shaky. This could be the final blow. Damon was losing sleep. He knew if this case wasn't handled fast and well, the entire media group could collapse, and with it, everything he'd fought to protect. Sarah wasn't supposed to know about any of this, but she did. She'd overheard phone calls, seen the worry on Damon's face, and one day, while he was out, he left the case file lying open in the library. She couldn't help herself. She read it, and her instincts kicked in. She noticed things others had missed, tiny holes in the story, strange details, facts that felt too perfect. Something was wrong. It didn't feel real. It felt planned. Later that evening, she found Damon in the library, sitting alone, his face shadowed in the warm lamplight. "Mr. Sinclair," she said softly, her voice steady but careful. "I know you told me to stay out of your business, but I read through some of the documents about the Chronicle lawsuit." He looked up, startled, tired, suspicious. "What do you know about that, Miss Moon?" he said coldly. "This isn't some romantic storybook. It's serious media law, real-world stuff." Sarah didn't flinch. She said, "I used to work in journalism, investigative journalism. I've dealt with stories like this. I know when something smells fake." Damon stared at her. This homeless woman, this wife he paid to marry, now claiming she could help solve a scandal that could destroy his company? It sounded ridiculous. But when he looked into her eyes, those deep blue eyes filled with calm confidence, he paused. Something about the way she spoke, the certainty, the fire behind her words. He was desperate. And at that moment, something inside him whispered, "What if she's right?" "All right, Miss Moon," he said at last, voice laced with doubt but also hope. "Show me what you can do."
Over the next few days, it was as if Sarah had flipped a switch. The quiet, careful woman who stayed in her room and avoided everyone, she was gone. In her place was someone sharp, focused, and full of energy. Her guest room turned into a messy office overnight. Notes were taped to the walls, folders lay open across the bed and desk. Her laptop, one Damon had given her without thinking, was constantly open, with documents, emails, and research tabs filling the screen. Sarah was on a mission. Damon watched her in silence at first. He wasn't sure what to make of it, but he couldn't deny the change. She wasn't just guessing her way through the case. She was methodical, smart, relentless. She found flaws in the politicians' claims, dates that didn't match, witnesses that hadn't been questioned, documents that seemed planted. And she didn't stop there. She reached out to Arthur Davies, the old lawyer who'd once looked at her like a ghost in his office. Now he looked at her like a rising sun. He helped her dig into legal records, verify names, and request documents only an insider could access. Sarah even found a frustrated young journalist at the Chicago Chronicle, a kid who believed in the truth but had no power. With Sarah leading the way, he helped her trace old articles, inside contacts, and even hush-hush rumors floating inside the media world. And Damon, for the first time in years, he wasn't alone. They worked together, often late into the night. At first, it was awkward, formal. She would quietly point to facts. He would give short answers. But as the hours turned into days, the walls between them started to crumble. They debated, laughed once or twice, grew tense over some clue, only to solve it together a moment later. Damon found himself watching her, not just for her ideas, but for the way she thought, the way she saw the world, and the way she never backed down. Sarah wasn't just brilliant, she was brave. And he was changing too. He had always been cold, controlled, careful. But next to Sarah, he began to feel something new. He wasn't just impressed, he was moved. He began noticing things, the gentle way she pushed her hair behind her ear when she focused, how her eyes lit up when she cracked a lead, how she never asked for credit, never once reminded him of the bridge or the deal that brought her here. This woman, who came from nothing, was now fighting to save everything he had, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. He was falling for her, but danger was closing in. The deeper they dug, the more Sarah and Damon realized there was something bigger going on. Too many coincidences, too many perfect lies. And one name kept coming up: Victor Sterling. It all made sense now. Sterling had used the politician as a puppet. He had fed him false stories, laid traps for the Chronicle, all to make the media group collapse, all to buy it cheap, all to take control. They had proof, but they also had enemies. Threats started arriving. Anonymous notes slid under their door. Sarah's laptop was hacked. Damon's penthouse was broken into, but nothing valuable was stolen. Only files, notes, case details. Then it got worse. One night, Sarah went out to collect a witness statement. A simple, quiet errand. Damon had a strange feeling and decided to follow her from a distance. Good thing he did. In a deserted alleyway, Sarah was cornered by two masked men. They tried to grab her bag, the one with all her documents. Damon didn't think. He ran towards them, fists flying. He took a few punches, but he didn't stop. He fought them off like a man with something real to lose. And when the attackers fled, he grabbed Sarah and held her tight. She was shaking, her breath short, but she was okay. That moment, it changed everything. In the rush, her bag had spilled onto the ground. Among the scattered papers was a worn-out ID card. Damon picked it up and froze. It read, Serafina Moon, press card. But underneath that name was something else. Phoenix. He stared at it in disbelief. Phoenix? You're Phoenix? The journalist who exposed the Omnicorp scandal? Sarah looked up, her face pale. Yes, she said softly, tears brimming in her eyes. That was me.
Sarah stood frozen in the alley, the wind brushing her hair across her face, her body trembling, not from the fight, but from the truth now lying bare between them. Damon held the old press card in his hand, still reading the name again and again. Phoenix. 5 years ago, everyone in media knew that name. Phoenix was the fearless, investigative journalist who exposed Omnicorp, a scandal that shook the country. She uncovered bribery, environmental crimes, secret payoffs. She was a star, a legend. And then, she vanished. "You're her?" Damon's voice cracked in disbelief. "You're Phoenix?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She nodded slowly. "That's who I used to be." They sat on a nearby bench in silence, the city glowing quietly around them. And for the first time, Sarah told him everything. After the Omnicorp scandal, she had become too visible, too dangerous. Her reporting had cost powerful men billions. One of them, Victor Sterling, had been deeply involved. He had been one of the hidden shareholders of Omnicorp. When she exposed the company, she unknowingly exposed him too. And he retaliated. He used everything he had, money, media, connections, to destroy her. Fake articles ruined her name. False stories painted her as a liar. She was fired, threatened, abandoned by friends who were too scared to stand beside her. Eventually, she had no money, no job, no safety. Her savings were drained by lawsuits. Her apartment was taken. She ran, changed her name, disappeared. She wandered from town to town until she finally ended up in Chicago, sleeping under a bridge. Damon listened silently, his heart breaking. The woman beside him had suffered so much, alone, forgotten, not because she did something wrong, but because she did something right. She told the truth, and the truth destroyed her. Now he finally saw her, not just as a clever woman, not just as someone who surprised him at parties or read his books, but as a fighter, a survivor, someone who had already been to hell and was still standing. His voice trembled when he spoke. "I didn't know, Sarah. I didn't know you went through all of that." She looked away, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want your pity." He shook his head. "No, I don't pity you. I admire you." He took her hands in his. "You've been through more than I can imagine. And still here you are, not giving up, helping me, saving my company when no one else could." His voice grew thick with emotion. "Sarah, I thought I brought you into my life as a solution to a problem, but the truth is, you are the best thing that's ever happened to me." Sarah blinked back tears. Her heart beat wildly. For so long she had hidden who she was, afraid of being judged, used, or hurt again. But here, right now, Damon saw all of her, and he didn't turn away. In that cold, dim alleyway where secrets were spilled and pain laid bare, something new began to bloom. Something real. Something called love. The time had come. Sarah had spent days gathering evidence, tangled phone records, altered invoices, secret memos, and hidden names. With Arthur Davies guiding the legal side and the young Chronicle reporter chasing leads, the picture became clear. Victor Sterling had masterminded the entire attack. He planted false stories, paid off insiders, manipulated the lawsuit against the Chicago Chronicle so it would destroy Sinclair Media Group from the inside, just so he could swoop in and buy it cheap. But Sarah now had everything to bring him down. Damon knew it was risky, but there was no other way. They needed to go public, loud, truthful, and unshakable. So he called for an emergency board meeting. The room was packed. Every shareholder, director, and senior executive sat in the high-rise conference room overlooking downtown Chicago. Reporters filled the side rows, lawyers, even press regulators. Everyone came expecting fireworks. No one expected what happened next. Damon stepped forward first. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to introduce someone." He turned to Sarah. "Most of you know her as Serafina Moon, my wife, but what you don't know is that she's also Phoenix, one of the bravest journalists this country has ever known." The room gasped. Whispers shot across the room like sparks. Then Sarah walked to the front. No fancy dress, no corporate blazer, just a simple outfit and her calm, fierce eyes. She laid out every piece of the puzzle. Emails, witnesses, financial trails, fake documents. Sterling's hidden role in the Omnicorp scandal, how he had ruined her life to protect himself, and now how he tried to ruin Sinclair Media. She didn't raise her voice once, but each word struck like a hammer. "I lost everything once," she said quietly, looking around the room. "But I didn't lose my belief in truth, and I didn't lose my voice." People sat frozen, eyes wide, hearts pounding. She turned to Victor Sterling, sitting near the back with a frozen smirk that had finally cracked. "You silenced me once, but not this time." Sterling opened his mouth to speak, but the silence in the room swallowed him whole. No one believed him anymore, not with the evidence laid bare, not with Phoenix standing right there, unshaken. He had been exposed. Minutes later, Damon announced the company's next steps. Formal charges would be filed. Sinclair Media would cooperate with the authorities, and Victor Sterling would be removed from the board immediately. It was over. Victor Sterling had fallen, and Sarah, Serafina Phoenix Moon, had risen. After the storm, everything began to change. Sinclair Media Group, once hanging by a thread, now stood tall again. With Victor Sterling gone and the truth out in the open, the company didn't just survive, it earned something greater: respect. People saw Damon differently now. He wasn't just a cold CEO in an expensive suit. He was a man who had risked everything to tell the truth, to protect his company, and to stand beside the woman who made it all possible. And Sarah? Sarah became a national voice again. The story of Phoenix, the journalist who lost everything, lived under a bridge, and then came back to expose corruption again, swept across headlines and screens. Offers came in from everywhere: talk shows, newspapers, TV networks. But Sarah didn't want fame. She wanted freedom. So, with Damon's full support, she took a position leading a new investigative column at Sinclair Media, a space where truth had no price tag, where she could guide young, passionate reporters, where her voice could be heard again, but this time on her terms. And she was loved, truly loved. One night, sitting on the couch in their penthouse, they shared a quiet moment. The city lights twinkled outside. A soft song played in the background. Damon turned to her, his face serious but gentle. "Sarah," he said, "I owe you something, more than just thanks." She looked at him, her expression soft. I never told you the truth about why I chose you, why I stopped that night under the bridge. It wasn't just desperation. Yes, at first, I thought I could fix everything with money, that I could buy a contract, buy peace." He paused, holding her hand. "But then I met you, and you changed everything, not just for my company, but for me. I fell in love with you." He took a deep breath. "I don't want our marriage to be some deal we made out of fear. I want it to be something real, something forever." Tears shimmered in Sarah's eyes. She didn't need big words. She squeezed his hand and whispered back, "I love you too, Damon. We may have started all wrong, but we ended up right." That night, the penthouse, once cold and lonely, felt like home. Books filled the walls now. Landscape paintings Sarah had created were framed in the halls. Soft music played in the evenings. Laughter echoed in the kitchen. Life had found its rhythm again. Sarah visited the shelter often. Mrs. Grace had recovered, thanks to the medicines Sarah insisted on providing the very first day she entered Damon's life. Together, they also launched a small nonprofit called Phoenix Rising, a fund to support young journalists from struggling backgrounds. It was Sarah's dream and Damon's gift. But one day, exactly 1 year after their quiet City Hall wedding, Damon had a surprise. He took Sarah for a drive. They arrived at a familiar place, the old concrete bridge where their story had begun. But it looked nothing like before. No longer dark and crumbling, it had been transformed into a bright, beautiful space. Murals colored the walls. Benches lined the walkway. A small open stage stood where artists now performed. It was part of a secret charity Damon and Sarah had funded, without taking credit. Sarah looked around, stunned. "This place," he smiled. "It brought me to you. I thought it deserved a second chance too." As the golden sun dipped behind the city, Damon knelt on one knee and pulled out a small, deep blue velvet box. Inside was a new ring. No longer the simple gold band Arthur Davies gave them in a hurry. This one was breathtaking. A sapphire, clear and deep like Sarah's eyes, surrounded by tiny diamonds that sparkled like stars. "Sarah," Damon said softly, "a year ago, I asked you to marry me out of fear. Today, I'm asking again out of love. Will you be my wife, not just by contract, but by heart? Not just today, but forever?" Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. She nodded, her voice choked but firm. "Yes, Damon Sinclair, forever and always." He slipped the ring on her finger. They embraced under the fading light. The place where despair once lived, now filled with laughter, hope, and love. They had started as strangers under a bridge with nothing but desperation and a deal. But now, they were something more. Lovers, partners, soulmates.
Damon and Sarah's story didn't end at the bridge. It was only the beginning. Over time, Sinclair Media Group became more than just a business. It became a symbol of truth. With Damon's new leadership and Sarah's sharp, honest journalism at its core, the company transformed into a media powerhouse that people trusted again. They didn't chase gossip or scandals anymore. They uncovered real stories. They fought for justice. They gave a voice to those who had been silenced. Sarah, under her legendary name Phoenix, created waves of change. Her investigative pieces challenged corruption, exposed lies, and inspired countless young reporters. But she remained the same, humble, focused, quietly fierce. She never stopped visiting the shelter. She never stopped checking on Mrs. Grace.
She never forgot where she came from. And her nonprofit, Phoenix Rising, grew quickly. It funded scholarships for journalism students from poor backgrounds. It hosted workshops. It built a new generation of truth seekers. Damon, too, had changed. Gone was the cold, unreachable CEO who lived in glass towers and chased profit. In his place was a man who paid attention, who listened, who cared. He started walking the newsroom floor, talking to employees, asking questions. He no longer ruled with silence. He led with compassion. Their penthouse, once quiet and cold, was now filled with life. Books lined the walls, music played in the evenings, paintings, laughter, the smell of freshly brewed coffee. It all made it feel like home, a real home. Sometimes, on quiet nights, they'd sit by the window with mugs in hand, watching the lights of Chicago. And they'd remember the bridge, the storm, the contract, the fear. But more than that, they'd remember the turning point, the moment love found them in the middle of the wreckage. They didn't start with fairy tales or fireworks. They started with wounds, with silence, with survival. But they grew into love, real love, the kind that's built, not bought, the kind that stands the test of time, the kind that turns scars into stories and stories into strength. Their journey reminded the world and each other that second chances often come disguised as broken moments, and that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin under a bridge.